Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Your UFC Vegas 80 Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by yours truly, Mike's MMA Picks, here with you on this gorgeous Saturday morning as we prepare for Grant Dawson and Bobby Green. 11 fights are headed our way. 8 out of 11 of these matchups are currently favored to end inside the distance. And if you're a fan of finishes, this is a great time to be alive because we are about to get started here. Let's get things kicked off with a fight that is expected to go the distance. Let's get those out of the way right off the bat, right, my brothers? So the first fight of the night, we have Montana De La Rosa, and she's taking on JJAldrich. JJAldrich, if you have a chance, take a look at her amateur record. She's fought the who's who, and now is starting to get up there in age. Granted, let's see here. She's in her early 30s, right? But she has a lot of competition under her belt. I know that De La Rosa has the wrestling background and may have more fights under her belt, but I believe that Aldrich, if you consider the amateur record, she's been around the block. And the Naliang fight, that did not look good. That was not a good look. The confidence seems to be shaken. I have concerns here for JJAldrich here. Man, losing the Lipsky, Blanchfield, I can understand. And then you look at the other side of the fight, De La Rosa. She's going to fight hard for your money. She's going to come forward. She's going to utilize her wrestling, and she's a dog out there, and she's willing to take a few punches to get where she needs to be. Granted, she also has been struggling recently. I'm going to be picking Montana De La Rosa here, and props to folks who were able to get on the early plus numbers. I'm typically not a big fan of laying heavily into women's mixed martial arts numbers. There's a lot of volatility there, but I think the right side here is Montana De La Rosa, and I hope that your ticket cashes. Next up, let's talk Nate Maness taking on Matthias Madon. Madon's coming in as a minus 230 favorite here, and both of these fighters, man, well, you have Mendonce, who made flyweight for the first time in his career. And then you have Maness, who looked like a skeleton out there. And I'll be honest, you have to wonder, how much do these weight cuts take out of folks here? I know Morono was another fighter who really seemed to struggle on the scales, but Maness, that looked next level, the way he was struggling there. And I know he said he was going to make it. And I believe part of that is due to his toughness. The sacrifice that he's willing to make. It takes some serious mental strength to be able to cut those extra few pounds and drop a weight class that you shouldn't necessarily be competing at. Maness, in my eyes, he should be up at featherweight. I don't know what he's doing down here at 125 pounds, but here he is, and he is a talented fighter. Watch back the Luke Sanders fight. That I know he was getting his head popped back like a Pez dispenser at times, but also he was able to land some shots of his own, put Sanders down, and then jump on the back for a rear naked choke submission. Got the tap, and you watch Maness. Maness is a tough kid who will fight hard. And then on the other side of the fight, you have a shooter box fighter in Matthias Madon, who is hell on wheels. I like what I see in this kid, but he was undefeated prior to this matchup, and he is a fighter who has thrown caution to the wind. He will get cracked at times trying to close distance, throws a lot of hooks. This is, I believe Madon should win this fight, but I'm not totally counting out Maness. Maness can crack, and he also has a killer instinct to him as well. And we've seen Gravely put Maness in some serious trouble. He was able to come back and knock Gravely out in that spot. I think that this fight is not going to go the distance. I think that's a solid play there. And I'll be picking Matthias Madon. I believe that he does have the deeper well to dig into when it comes to the cardio side of things, when things get tough here. And he's a much, much younger fighter. So next up, we have Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Konako Marada. Marada has not seen the inside of an octagon in quite some time. And granted, when she did, she lost to Verna Jandaroba, and that isn't something that concerns me too much. But you also watch previous bouts of Marada, and she has she's shown that she's not this invincible force out there. She does have her warts as well. I have concerns about not only the layoff, but also against Demopoulos, who's willing to throw caution to the wind and will go out on her shield. We know that Demopoulos is a fighter who, granted, she isn't the most athletic fighter. She loves to jump into Michael Bisping's arms as well as Joe Rogan's arms. I wonder who's going to be there in attendance calling the action tonight, but they better be prepared if Vanessa Demopoulos is able to pull off this underdog victory situation. I'm going to be leaning Marada here. I think the wrestling is going to be the biggest factor, obviously. I mean, that's a no-brainer, but also the striking on the feet. I'm neither of these fighters impress me on the feet at all. So I'm going nowhere near touching this money line. I'll say that. But it should be a frenetic pace, and things should get wild in there. That's what I will say about this matchup. Should be a very chaotic fight, and Marada is going to try to secure top position, but Demopoulos is going to be trying to scramble in and out of positions. I'm going to be picking Marada, but I do not trust either fighter one bit. Let's check the chat here before we get going. We have a number of folks in here this morning. London, good morning. Bodega Bay, the sunrise and the coffee. Excellent. Good morning, Gabe. I want to thank you for your work with the animals in the homeless shelters and helping find them homes. Excellent job there. Good morning. Good morning. Brian, welcome aboard. Happy fight day. Shady's here. Good morning, sir. Pleasure to have you. Clint, good morning. Thanks for the ongoing support. Appreciate you. Shady, howdy. Maness is a mess. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I believe that is going to be a chaotic fight where somebody's gonna get finished likely. Kristen says she refuses to bet any woman at a minus 300 or higher number. I echo your sentiment there. Konako is a strong family lineage. The Marada family are legends with judo. While that may be the case, when exhaustion sets in, it usually causes concern for many. Let's get back to these fights. Let's talk Arichi Lung taking on Johnny Munos in a fight where you have a Johnny Munos who does have a tendency to pull guard, yes, but also likes to get his jiu-jitsu going. And we saw against Danny Santos, he was getting beaten to a pulp with groin shots, as Lou Betcha says, yam bag action, right? That was on full display there. Multiple shots. Santos ended up losing a point in that fight and then still won decisively on the judges' scorecards despite being deducted a point. Johnny Munos has a tendency to fade in many of his fights, and Arichi Lung, he's a fighter. I love how crisp his striking is. Granted, he got caught against Zahabi. I'm talking about the offensive output, not necessarily the defensive side of his striking, because he's been caught. And even Jeff Molina, you talk about one of the lowest of the low, bottom of the barrel fighters. Jeff Molina got into a firefight with Arichi Lung, and that was a disturbing look. But we're up a weight class here, and Johnny Munos, if he's able to have this fight play out on the mat, obviously he's got a significant advantage here. But whenever it's standing, I don't like the way Munos absorbs punches, and also he wilts, and he wilts big time. This is a very closely aligned fight. I am going to lean Munos because I believe that he's the more dynamic fighter who does have a more significant strength on the mat. here. And I think that in the smaller octagon, that is likely what's going to end up happening. But I believe that this fight is going to end inside the distance. And you look at the fight doesn't go the distance line, sitting at minus 165 right now. Hesitant to even play a money line side on either of these fighters because of their tendency to fold. And Arichi Long, the way he had his lights shut off, did you notice after the fight, he's sitting there getting back up into his stance as if he's going to fight again against Zahabi? I think it was Daniel Cormier who brought that up on the broadcast. But give me Munos, very slight lean, not touching that fight. Ben, good morning. Oh, I see your four-legged friend there in your avatar. Excellent, excellent. Big Pretty is still snoring at this hour, which is a little strange. I have to give her breakfast. Let's talk Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Diana Belbita in a matchup between two fighters who have they've been enamored by MMA Twitter. MMA Twitter has been obsessed with these young ladies. Well, Karolina Kowalkiewicz is now, I believe, 37 years of age, but Diana Belbita is a much younger fighter here. I believe the lower skilled fighter, when we're being honest with ourselves. Belbita may have some cardio advantages here and also the length on the feet. Kowalkiewicz, the thing about Kowalkiewicz is she's really resurrected herself like a phoenix in a way, because I've seen her quit. I've seen her battered, brutalized, beaten. Remember, she had that eye injury, and I thought she was retiring for a while. She ended up coming back. I believe that is partially due to the folks at ATT who have believed in her, and then to get a win under her belt against Juarez. There seemed to be some shenanigans going on with the judges at the end of that fight, but you watch that fight back, and then she's been able to rattle off some victories here. This is a very closely lined fight. I think that I believe Kowalkiewicz has what it takes to come out the other side of this fight victorious. I've watched the tape back. I've spent a few hours watching tape of both of these fighters, and although we are seeing a diminished form of Kowalkiewicz, I'm going to be picking her to walk out of the octagon victorious. We've got a number of comments here who've under 2.5. Shady's playing. Interesting. Just open your eyes. Jenna, good morning. Thank you for joining the team. Let's continue the journey here, where we have this is a fight that everybody's talking about, right? Everybody's talking about this fight. Alexander Hernandez and Bill Algeo, the line moving, etc. I think this is partially due to the media day interviews where Alexander Hernandez shared that he recognized that he made his previous fight against Billy Q much more difficult than it needed to be. Bill Algeo, yes, he is going to fight so hard for your money. I was at one of Bill Algeo's recent fights against Herbert Burns, and we know Herbert Burns doesn't have a gas tank at all. Even Herbert Burns put Bill Algeo in some very tough spots, but Algeo came out the other side victorious. And I'm going to be pulling for Bill Algeo to win this fight today. My initial play was Bill Algeo at minus 130. And I, very rare, maybe once a year or so, I'll end up hedging. And after the media day interview with Alexander Hernandez, and also he looked great on the scales at 145 pounds, seems to be rejuvenated. I think that this fight has the potential to play out much closer than I initially expected. And you know that Bill Algeo likely will drop the first round in this spot. But after that, Algeo should be able to come on and really turn the tide on Alexander Hernandez if Hernandez ends up relinquishing and sacrificing too much of himself as far as the gas tank goes. I'm expecting a more measured approach from Alexander Hernandez, who will likely come in here looking to pick his shots, stay at range. And we heard him mention, who's he fighting? And he said, Taekwondo Billy. Hey, I got to give Bill Algeo much more respect in this spot. I'm going to be picking Bill Algeo to win here, but what I think most folks should do in this spot, if this fight gets out of the first round and you start to see Alexander Hernandez fading, even subtly, to hammer the Bill Algeo side, because that's from a live betting perspective. I don't trust Alexander Hernandez. I've posted on Twitter, I think 5 or 6 times where he's faded and totally melted. And Bill Algeo knows exactly, this is a seasoned veteran. Bill Algeo knows exactly what's coming back at him here. Granted, Bill Algeo has faltered against Ricardo Ramos and others down the stretch. I was on Andre Fili against Bill Algeo, and I've been successful fading Bill Algeo at times, but I also see the strengths and see the weaknesses. I think it's very important that when you break down fights, that you look at paths to victory and also paths to defeat. And this is a very closely lined fight. I think the best bet here is to wait live bet opportunity on Bill Algeo. But I'm going to be picking Bill Algeo, but I understand. I ended up hedging and placed a small wager on Alexander Hernandez, I believe 0.8 units on Hernandez at plus 110. So the line has flipped, and I ended up getting out of that spot, basically sacrificing less than 1/10 of a unit. And I'm going to be watching this right now with the live betting opportunity in play. But interesting matchup. Let's see. We've got Patrick says Algeo round 2. Hernandez hates second rounds. Yes, that is true. And the world's going to be watching. The world will be watching. Next up, we have Felipe Lins taking on Iwan Cutelaba. Iwan Cutelaba coming in as the minus 135 betting favorite. Now, he was out to minus 150 or so at a certain point of the week. And Felipe Lins, he looked phenomenal on the scale. This is somebody who's now 38 years of age. He seems to have found the fountain of youth once again. I remember his success in PFL was pretty pronounced. I believe he won $1 million and then gets blown out of the water by Tanner Boser, of all people. And these two fighters have a mutual opponent. Iwan Cutelaba just stormed through Tanner Boser, but we didn't really see much of that fight. It didn't play out that long. And Cutelaba is a great hammer, but a horrific nail. Horrific. He will look for ways out of fights. The Ryan Spann fight, that's another one that really opened my eyes, and we've seen it happen many, many times before. The Jared Cannonier fight, the Glover Teixeira fight. Remember that fight where Glover Teixeira was standing in his corner and Iwan Cutelaba marched towards him, and Glover, he lets out, not today. This is a situation where Lins, yes, I believe he's going to fight defensively, look to counter Cutelaba, who's going to be very aggressive, just like he has been. And these two are going to engage in fisticuffs. And I believe somebody's going down. You look at the fight doesn't go the distance number. I believe it's at like minus 500 or so right now. I don't think this is hitting the scorecards, and I'll be picking Lins to win, primarily due to the fact that Cutelaba has a tendency to fade and fade hard. And we've seen it happen many, many times in the past. Now, what's a strange complexion to this fight is Lins is the much older fighter here. So that maybe eliminates some of the factor when it comes to the gassing situation, but I'll still be picking Lins to win. I think that the value is on his side here. You have a notorious front runner in Cutelaba. So give me Felipe Lins there. Now, interesting matchup. We have Drew Dober taking on, oh gosh, what did I do here? I made a mistake here. Drew, let me get that off the board. Drew Dober is not fighting Joaquin Buckley. Can you imagine if that fight went down? Oh my gosh. Let's talk Drew Dober versus Ricky Glenn. Drew Dober is coming in as a massive, massive favorite, and Ricky Glenn is the significant underdog here. And Ricky Glenn, we know, is coming off of a loss to Giagos, where Giagos teed off on him, and the fight didn't play out for very long. And you saw Glenn looked like he was he's a lanky fighter, but everything looked almost robotic in nature, the way he was walking around out there trying to maneuver his body. And he's going to have to move that chin. He's going to have to move his head off the center line, or else Drew Dober's going to come in here and knock it off. I am going to be picking Dober to win by TKO in this spot. Dober's a massive favorite, but I don't trust either fighter here. We've seen Dober take a loss recently to Matt Frivola. I was at that fight, and Dober was having some initial success, and it almost was like he didn't respect the power that was coming back out of him from Matt Steamroller Frivola, and Frivola put him down, put him out, and it was an incredible feat to watch that live and hear the crowd erupt and the Timmy trumpet. That was something else. So in this spot, I'll be picking Drew Dober to win by TKO. But if this fight gets extended, we've seen Ricky Glenn can, against Tucker and others, he can push a pace on opponents. And, oh, man, I'm having flashbacks to the Dennis Bermudez fight. That was another one that I was on Bermudez in that matchup, and that came back to bite me in the butt. That was many years ago, but it just goes to show you that Ricky Glenn is no slouch, and that number is very, very wide here. So give me Dober to win and to win by TKO. Now let's talk Alex Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley coming in as a minus 180 betting favorite. This is over at DraftKings, and then you have Alex Morono sitting at as plus 150. Morono, I believe I was one of the first folks on MMA Twitter to post the pictures of Morono slumped over on his knees, and looked like he had a horrific weight cut. Granted, he does look like he has a pretty rough weight cut every time out. And Morono, he carries around a lot of extra adipose tissue. He's a fighter who has done the best with his God-given abilities, but also he's not very athletic, and his success is partially due to his coaches' excellence, Team Fortis, great coaching staff over there, and also Alex Morono, a very cerebral fighter. He'll try to stick to his strengths, but there are times when he gets caught in firefights. And against Joaquin Buckley, only 29 years of age, I believe. Buckley, although, has lost by knockout 4 times. And you look at Morono, I know Morono's had some brutal knockout losses, but Morono's only been knocked out 3 times in his career. So just something to consider. So in this spot, Buckley, I know he's dropped down from 185 to 170, and I believe that Buckley's the rightful favorite here. He's got to land on Morono. That's what he has to do. He has to find the target. And it might take him a few minutes, which can be a little sketchy. And if you go back and watch the Buckley fight against Andre Fiallo, I looked at the scorecards there, and Buckley actually lost the first round on 2 of the 3 scorecards to Fiallo. So I have a 1.5 unit play on Joaquin Buckley at minus 165. And in this spot, I also think back to Buckley has been fighting at 185 also for a while. And could you imagine for 1 second Abdul Razak Alhassan against Morono? And that fight, 170, can you imagine that taking place at 185? Morono's been slapped a number of times, and when he goes out, he goes out. The face, Morono's had his face contorted against Santiago Ponzinibbio and others. I have concerns here. I'm on the Buckley side, and I believe that he is gonna come out victorious here. Oh, we have a steamroller in there. Buckley is yoked. Look way bigger at faceoffs. Yes, he did, and he's so explosive. That's a key here. He's incredibly explosive, Joaquin Buckley. So I think that he has the gas to go all 3 rounds. He can get the knockout in the 3rd round if he has to. And Morono is going to be light on his feet, but he's got to be careful because there's going to be Buckley darting in and out. Now, let's talk Joe Pyfer, who reminds me of a gigantic version of Kyle Nelson. And he's taking on Abdul Razak Alhassan. We saw Abdul Razak Alhassan, the lead up to this fight, has been talking a lot of smack to Joaquin Buckley. He's got to pay attention to the guy who's in front of him, Joe Pyfer here, who's going to be marching towards him. looking to take Abdul Razak Alhassan's head off. But Alhassan, I suspect he's going to be trying to land counters here. He's a very aggressive fighter. And when he does decide to go, he could knock anybody out. Pyfer has a lot of hype behind him. We know the Joe Pyfer mantra. And I think that could potentially come back to harm Joe Pyfer because he's going to end up being so aggressive when he shouldn't be. And he's going to get countered and knocked out at some point. Could Abdul Razak Alhassan be that guy? Yes, potentially he could, which is a dangerous proposition. But I think about the gas tank issue here for Abdul Razak Alhassan. I think about the smaller octagon, and also Pyfer is massive for the weight class. And I got to say this too, Pyfer, the long neck, that chin, he doesn't seem to move that chin much, and that's a concern for me. If Alhassan lands, it could be lights out and make for a highlight reel KO in this spot. But I'll be picking Pyfer to win this fight inside the distance. I am not touching either of these fighters from a money line perspective. I do think that there will be violence transpiring inside of the octagon here. And I play the under 2.5. I think the under 1.5 is a possibility. I don't trust Pyfer to come out and grapple heavy here. Just imagine he's going to have to close distance here. And as soon as he closes distance, I believe Alhassan wants to strike. He doesn't want to grapple. He's going to try to land heavily. But give me Pyfer inside the distance. I have no other plays on this bout other than the under 2.5. We've got a lot of comments piling up here. Let's see. Let's see what we got here. Kristen had Morono at plus 164, but Buckley scared you out of it. Joe Pyfer. Yes, let's see. Pyfer is a newer recipient of Dana White privilege, if such a thing exists. Well, we'll see. Alhassan plus 325, plus 550. Interesting. You like the under as a parlay piece. Grateful dude. Yes, I believe that has a high likelihood of hitting. I'm not a big fan of parlaying anything, but I see what you're saying there. But I'll be picking Pyfer to win inside the distance. And I think that violence is probably the way to go in that spot. At least that's what I'm playing. Main event of the evening. Let's talk Grant Dawson against Bobby Green. We're at 27 minutes. Let's see if we can bang this out before the 30-minute mark. Grant Dawson, minus 500 betting favorite. You watched the lead up to this fight at the face-offs yesterday. Grant Dawson came out and said, I'm going to hump your legs for 25 minutes when he's talking to Bobby Green. And Bobby Green smirked at him. And I believe that the grappling heavy game plan is headed Bobby Green's way. Now, is Grant Dawson capable of grappling heavy for 25 minutes? Possibly. But I also think that there's a strong likelihood that Dawson ends up finishing this fight inside the distance. And Bobby Green, we know Grant Dawson does not have his striking is not near the level of Bobby Green's in any regard, both offensively and defensively, especially defensively. Grant Dawson, Jared Gordon was teeing off on him at times before Dawson got the finish in that fight. And I know that Dawson's a very tough kid, and he comes from a great camp, and he fights smart most of the time. I'm going to be picking Dawson to win and to win inside the distance. I did play fight doesn't go the distance here. I think that if Bobby Green is able to extend this fight and have any success on the feet, he could catch Dawson. But that fight against Damir Ismagulov, you watch that back and you look at the control. Does Ismagulov have the same submission defense that Bobby Green does? I think Green is susceptible to getting submitted. And I think that's the more probable outcome here, is that Dawson locks in a submission. I'll be picking Grant Dawson to win this fight and to win this fight inside the distance. Fight doesn't go the distance is the play that I made. Want to wish everybody a fantastic fight day. Thank you for tuning in today. If you have any quick questions or concerns, put them into the comment section. You can follow me over at Mike's MMA Picks on Twitter. My third-party betting record tracked record is over at betmma.tips. We're up about 8 or 9% this year and 6 consecutive winning years. So proud of that. Taking it one fight at a time. Remember to go get what's yours and enjoy fight day. Soak it up. We had a week off and now we're back at it again. So if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing to the channel, I know we're continuing to pump out content every week, but on my end, I'm doing 20, 30 plus hours of homework preparing for each card every week and putting out a tremendous amount of free content on a regular basis. So if you wouldn't mind taking a second or two to subscribe to the channel and like the video, that would be a big help for us over here. And we're in it to win it. So appreciate you. Thank you for your loyalty here. Have a great day.